Welcome, everybody, to another episode of Mythic Conversations, episode 62. Thank you all very much for joining tonight, whether you are joining for the first time, whether you're here every week, whether you're live or catching this on replay. I very much appreciate you joining me for this talk about all things Legions, not just Mythic anymore. It's a whole new universe, right? We're talking Cosmic tonight as well. I'm your host, Jeremy Gerard. I'm a Mythic Legions collector and customizer. I also have the distinct privilege of being the digital marketing manager for Four Horsemen Studios. That means that everything you see at sourcehorseman.com is content that I help to bring you. If you want to see more of my work, you can certainly check me out on Instagram at Mythic Customs or my website, www.mythiccustoms.com. Of course, I'm also here every single Wednesday night doing this show live at 7:30 p.m. Eastern Time. Tonight's conversation is going to be in the same vein as the last few. We're still talking Cosmic. Cosmic is still a huge thing going on, obviously, in the world of Legions. A few weeks ago, we did kind of the Cosmic Legions launch pre-show where we just got everyone excited, what we had shown so far. Last week was a huge show with Cosmic Customs. Thank you once again to Four Horsemen Studios for that and to all my customizing friends who helped out. Tonight, I wanted to bring on another guest to continue this conversation. I want to talk more about Cosmic Legions, more about the pop and swap potential between not only Cosmic itself, but Cosmic and Mythic. So I brought in someone who I have not had a chance to speak to on the show previously. Joining us tonight is Bill Drewnowski, also known as Dorklair. Bill, thank you very much for joining us this evening.
Thanks for having me, Jeremy. I'm glad to be here.
Thank you. So, like I said, first time on the show. We have had the opportunity to talk a number of times, both at like ToyCon and just chatting through the Cabal and online. But happy to finally have you on the actual show.
Yeah, I'm glad to be here, man. I don't get to catch it every week because it's usually right around my daughter's bedtime. So sometimes I sneak in little snippets of it, in between that. But I love the show, and I just want to say, like, after listening to your intro, you're doing such an amazing job on Source Horseman. It's like it's one of my favorite websites, and we're in an era where like websites are not as much of a thing anymore, right? Like everything's on social media or apps or whatever, and you guys are just doing such a killer website, and it's so refreshing and awesome to have just this great place to learn about the Legions, both Cosmic and Mythic.
I appreciate that praise. Like I've said many times, it's me just building the website that I want to see as a fan, and being able to work with the others in the studio that are just, incredibly creative, exciting people to be around. And that energy kind of helps fuel everything. And awesome. On that note, we're getting a lot of comments right here that are people talking about your YouTube channel and your content as well. So it seems like it's a big love fest tonight. Everyone's saying that they love everybody. But no, genuinely, thank you very, very much. A lot of work goes into that. A lot of deliberate thought goes into that. So it's always wonderful to hear that it is appreciated.
I'm sorry. I'm just reading some of these comments.
I love this one because it's also from Hefty Steel Sack.
That's a great name.
How I imagined. He looks much cooler. Like, this is just the best comment ever. Like, top to bottom, the best comment.
The other one is that I look like a country and western singer, which
I did like that.
I keep telling my students, the longer my hair gets and the grayer I get, I'm going to just slowly morph into Willie Nelson.
Nice. I love it. So, Bill, got to know, and I'm sure you've had this conversation with a number of people already, but you whether you tuned in live or whether you caught it on replay, you saw the reveals for Cosmic Legions Valkatar Book 1. What were your thoughts? What were you thinking when you saw these reveals?
I was blown away. It was a mix of like, this is kind of exactly what I expected, with holy cow, they went over in this crazy direction. And it just really, to me, is incredible. Particularly like the number of items. Like, I don't know why, I just was in my head and like 8 or fewer or something like that. And then for them to go bigger than even the Aerithir wave,
Yeah.
kind of blew my mind. I mean, it's a big wave. It's awesome. There's some great variety. Like, that's another thing, is I did not expect 2.0 size figures in this first wave. I mean, I know that they had teased the ogre scale, but that was really cool to see the 2.0 in there.
And that's one of the awesome advantages, I think, of doing this line now, where Mythic is at the stage that it is access to some of these parts. It's funny, as we're having this conversation, I just finished an article today that will be posted on the website probably next week. I'm hearing a lot of people ask questions about which parts are compatible between which figures on these. Because there's a lot of new people coming into the line, right, that are getting introduced to this through Cosmic Legions. So they're not familiar with the designations of 1.0, 2.0, and all that. So I wrote an article kind of breaking that all down. But it does point out, like Zeri and the Tusk Engineer, that are the 2.0 figures, their upper arms and their upper legs, those are all Mythic Legions parts.
Right.
Those are pieces that already existed. So to your point, getting 2.0 style figures in the line at this early stage, that I agree with you. That was really refreshing for me as well.
Definitely. And then to see a completely new figure type, essentially, with Slog. Wait, what's his name? Slog?
Slog, yeah.
Yeah. That was another one. Like, I expected, I think, the theme, because we had seen some of this stuff, like little hints and teases of it. So the theme of it all kind of like fits my expectations for the most part. But the variety is really what struck me as crazy. Yeah, very cool.
And I've been saying this quite a bit, but it bears repeating as much as possible. This is just a scratch on the surface.
Yeah.
Literally, because that is one critique that I have heard a couple people see. And it's funny, I watched on the Fwoosh today, I was watching Robo's kind of Fwoosh Weekly, and he was talking about Cosmic Legions. And he actually mentioned that some people have commented that there's too much similarity in the line, which is funny because a lot of us are surprised how much variety there is in the line. But he said it specifically on his review that I agree with, is this is a small slice. Like, this is a little piece of the story. So like any story, we're going to only see the characters that are in that chapter.
Right.
Yeah. It obviously takes place in, the Valkatar prison. So we're going to see the inmates. We're going to see the people that are part of the prison. We've got guards in the Sphexians. We've got, members of, the science officers and the engineers. So we've got some variety there, but I really do know that as this line expands and other chapters open up, we're going to see whole other corners of the universe that look nothing like these.
Yeah, makes sense.
Yeah, that's exciting. Off the top of your head, off your initial feelings, any favorites that you saw right out of the gate?
Yeah, I think we share the favorite together, because my favorite is Valkatar version of Thygar with the spacesuit in the helmet and stuff. Like, he's and it's all about all of those paint details, and then like the the bug guys, the Sphexians, are like in that same realm of like super super detailed. I guess it's that like that $48 deluxe treatment that these things have. It just looks, yeah. I mean, just there's so many little separate painted areas all
Yes.
throughout the spacesuit, I guess.
So,
Yeah.
one thing that I mentioned last week is, and I know this will be important to you because you like to break things apart. They're still figuring out what the tooling's going to be, but one of the things you can't really see in the photos is that this back piece that you have here that's got, if you look on the back, it's got these 4 kind of exhaust ports, right?
Yeah.
The bottom 3, those are all part of a removable panel. So if you pull that out, the back of that torso looks like what you would expect a Mythic Legion's torso to look like, or a Legion's torso,
With the 3 holes.
With the 3 holes. So that plugs into that center port. That center port, everyone's always like, what the hell is that thing for?
Yeah.
It's to put this backpack on.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
And then that whole neck collar, that pops off as well, kind of exposing the normal neck joint that we've, no net peg we've come to, be used to. So right there's some, some variety in how you can display it. Yeah. I do love this figure. I love the fact that you've got the bubble helmet, that you can take that bubble helmet off to get that look. You can take totally the thing off, put his second head on him. That second head that kind of has the integrated helmet on, the whole thing I just think looks great.
Mindless Focus says that he wants to create a super armor fighting elite version of the Sphex, abbreviated to Safe Sphex.
Safe Sphex. I like that. Yeah, he's an absolute great figure. He is one of my favorites. Him along, yeah, you're right. Him, Zeri, and the 2 Sphex. Those are, I'm excited for all of them, but those are the ones I really, really like. Now, I will say, however, one of the reasons I wanted to have you on tonight was as a contrast a little bit to what we did last week with Cosmic Customs, because I've told you this in person a number of times, but you come up with some of the coolest looking, I call them customs. I know a lot of people would call them kit bashes, pop and swaps. The way that you seem to find combinations of characters and combine them without any additional paint or anything like that, I think is absolutely wonderful. I mean, you've done things that really inspire me to make combinations of my own for my customs as well. So that's one of the reasons I wanted to have you on, because I know that as you're looking at this lineup, you're starting to think about the pieces you're going to, pop and swap and move around. And I would say that the figure that's probably the most conducive to that is the Tusk Sentry.
I'd agree.
Yeah,
the color, having a very neutral color scheme is going to, it's going to make it a very universal sort of swappable kit bashing figure. Like, for example, I imagine for this figure taking like Torion's arms and giving him black bare arms or something like that. You know what I mean? Like, that's kind of one of those things I want to experiment with when I get these in hand, is like swapping bare arms onto these space guys. I think that's going to be a lot of fun. I think the other one, I know it's a little less humanoid looking, but the science officer, I think because it has a little blue scheme, like taking Dragool's bare arms and putting those on him is going to yield some really cool effects. And so the neutral color of this thing is going to make it very universal.
Absolutely. And someone was just asking if that backpack is on the Sentry. It is. And again, I actually asked Eric Treadaway last week. I said, hey, because these are some of the parts that I was able to work with for that kind of Magnus custom I did.
Yeah.
And when I got them, they were separate pieces. And it, it obviously looked like that's how it was going to be. So I asked him, hey, is this how they're going to be in production? And he didn't want to say yes, because things can always change between now and then. He said that is the plan. So unless something changes, that's how it will be. But yes, to answer your question, that is the same. It's the exact same build as what we just saw on the thigh guard. It's actually a different front, but these back pieces are the same as what we just looked at on thigh guard. That's interesting to do the bare arms. That wasn't one that I personally had been thinking about, but I like that is going to create some cool looks. I mean, the easiest thing people are going to do with this is just pop the head off. Just put some different heads on this. I mean, I'm hearing people lament that they didn't get their Space Marines, they didn't get their, cosmic skeletons. I mean, this figure, as well as the science officer, are absolutely made for you to pop that head off and pop something else on. The only reason I like this one more than the science officer for that is this one has the bubble. The science officer doesn't have the bubble.
Yeah. And I was thinking something like, shoot, I can't remember his name. What is his name? Krotos. Like, I was thinking like taking some of the animal heads and using those and having those be like aliens, right? Like having Krotos, the sort of goat looking guy, and then popping that head, say on the Sentry, which I think that's another sort of color thing, that it's got those kind of like light earth tones, like that. I feel like that head's going to swap on there and look pretty cool, assuming it'll fit right. I mean, that beard might get a little bit in the way of the armor, but
yeah,
I love the idea of taking the animal head. Somebody posted actually a super clean looking Photoshop of that Thygar in the suit with Balam's head on there. That was like brilliant, and that's the kind of, you can just make a cat alien.
Well, look, you're talking about putting animal heads on things, so you're clearly speaking my language. Because as we all know, I love the animal characters, so I'm full on with wanting to do that. Animal, all the things. But yeah, I saw that as well. The cat head looked a tiny bit oversized, looked a little bit bigger than it would really be, but not by much. It looked pretty darn close. And you're right, I looked at that and I was just immediately like, son of a gun. Like, that is such a simple little pop and swap. That character had so much personality just with that head.
Yeah.
But yeah, I could absolutely see this figure. Side note, this is one of my most anticipated figures coming out. I love this character for just everything about him. That new torso and lower skirt piece, I'm super excited for this guy.
Yeah, this feels very Jeremy Gerard-esque. This is the type of thing that I feel like you would have on, mixed in with your stuff.
It is. It's funny because that lower skirt style look, we're getting that on a few figures in the Alithia wave, and that is one of the things I've done with Lord of the Rings parts so many times.
Yeah,
because every Lord of the Rings character has a costume like that. They all have that lower part under the belt, and up until this, no Legions figures had it. So it was such an easy take it from a Lord of the Rings, put it on a Legions. It's a really easy, cheap way to get a different look. So the fact that we're getting actual parts that do that now are totally up my alley.
Somebody mentioned the builder packs with this little bit of a discount, which is awesome that they're doing that, given the option to order them in larger chunks and shave off a few bucks per figure.
Yeah, that's cool. I mean, for people that genuinely want to buy them in bulk, you're going to get, if you look at the prices, if you buy the 12 pack, you basically get one free. If you buy the 24 pack, you basically get two free. So if you're going to buy that many, it's a nice savings for that. It'll come all prepackaged. They're going to, just like the all-ins, those will be pre-packed at the actual factory.
Yeah, it makes sense.
I did see some people asking if they could, it'd be cool if they had mix and matches and, you know, sixes and stuff. And there's so much that you can do it. At the end of the day, you have to make decisions and kind of decide, okay, production wise, this is what actually makes the most sense.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. What's gonna yield the most efficiency and savings and stuff is probably.
Yes. But yeah, that was cool to see that they added that, because I definitely can see some people picking up one of those 12 or 24 packs. So looking at it here, I'll tell you one of the things I'm excited for is, and I'm going to go back to the actual checklist here, and I'm going to bring up Zeri. So we just did a feature on Zeri this week on Store Horseman. And if you're looking at those features, we're starting to expand a little bit more on their stories. You know, the initial bios that were released the same day that we did the launch, they just kind of a little bit of information about the character. But as we do these reveals, we're not only trying to, you know, show some cool stuff. Like, for instance, did you see the pink version of Zeri?
Yeah, that was cool.
Yeah, it's kind of neat. And it's funny because seeing Zeri in blue, that's totally how I love it. But then seeing it in pink, I was like, oh man, I really dig that colorway as well.
Yeah, like you mentioned, I really like that you're building out the story while also giving some background on the production process. And yeah, these features are fantastic. And it's I don't know, like, I'm kind of more into this story than I am typically into the Mythic Legions story, because I came into Legions a little bit later, and I feel like by the time I came in, the story was already so big and overwhelming that I never totally like consumed it. You know what I mean? Like you would a fandom or something. I have a decent bit of knowledge of the lore and stuff, but like it never became something that I was like fully immersed in. And this, I already feel like I'm caught up on the story, you know, and it's like I could follow it. And these posts are great little chunks that are kind of like building it out every week or whatever.
You know what? That's actually a good point, and I'm remiss. I should have asked that up front. When did you start with Legions? At what point in the Mythic Legions line?
The first figure I got was the deluxe Legion builder. So that was Covenant of Shadows. Is that right?
The deluxe.
The deluxe knight. Sorry, the deluxe knight.
So that was Covenant.
Yeah. So that was my first one. I ordered that, pre-ordered. Then when that was coming in, they had the in stock, and I ordered the Templar because I knew I was going to need something to swap the parts with. So I ordered, those were my first two.
Okay.
And those deluxe figures, like if anybody is like, oh, I'm on the fence, I've been thinking about it. Like those deluxe figures are just awesome intros to the line because it forces you to part swap. And that's kind of like one of the best things about it. Yeah. So that was 2016, I think, is when I got my first ones. But I didn't really like dive super heavy in until Advent of Decay, when they announced Goblins. And being a Magic the Gathering player my entire life, really, since 94, I've always had Goblin decks, and I've always been into Goblins, and that really like pulled me in. And I pre-order, you know, I did the Kickstarter for, you know, maybe half a dozen or a little bit more, and then after that, it just kept growing and building kind of rapidly from there.
That's awesome. I mean, that is still pretty early on. You know, when I talk to people that say, "Oh, I didn't get in at the beginning," usually, if they came in at Advent of Decay or earlier, they're early in the line.
Right.
To me, after Advent of Decay is really when the machine was churning, and we saw the amount of fans in the community start to really, really go up.
Oh, for sure.
So, but to your point, I agree with you, and it's deliberate. You know, being on, you know, the inside now, you know, I can very, very much tell you that so much was learned during, and I'm going to take this off screen for a moment. So much was learned during the 6 years of Mythic Legions. You know, what the studio knows now versus what they knew when they launched Mythic Legions, it's night and day. Not only that, but they have resources at their disposal now that they didn't have back then. So right from the get-go, I mean, Cosmic Legions had such a build-up, so much that went into it, but, you know, thinking about how it was going to be presented and understanding that it was a story, the simple fact that, you know, the first wave, you know, is very much this specific group of characters that are all interacting with each other. If we compare that to Mythic Legions 1, there are characters in that are all over the board.
Yeah.
All 10 factions represented, at least one character from every one of those factions, you know, lots of different races, lots of different storylines. You have to assume that there are characters that were presented in Mythic Legions 1 that in the story lore will never actually meet.
Right. Yeah.
They just never will.
Yeah.
Whereas everybody in Valkatar Book 1 is very likely to meet. They're at least all in the same proximity because they're all in the prison at some point. Mm-hmm. So that idea of rolling out that story, I agree. Super, super exciting. And it just started. There's so much that hasn't been revealed yet. But back to talking about Ziri, you know, what I think is really cool about her is, you know, the story revealed that she's this like bioengineer. So there's this serum called Thyrixium that is core to this storyline that we're hearing. It's, you know, it's a substance that's manufactured at the prison. It's something that High Warden Slog clearly needs for some reason. We haven't revealed exactly why yet, but he's got, you know, a tie to it as well. And she's the one that created it. So the reveal showed that, you know, not only is she this bioengineer, she had her serum stolen from her. She left to join this group called the Mortal Thorn that they haven't expanded on yet. But now she's also in the prison and she's part of this group called Grave Ring. So there's a lot to this character that's already been revealed. And visually, I love the way she looks, and I'm super, super excited to pop this head on some Mythic Legions because this is a head. I know a lot of people were focused on Thygar and focused on Kragnar being easily compatible with Mythic. This is the one that right out of the gate I could see on a Mythic Legions figure.
Oh, yeah, for sure. I see this as like a merfolk type sea elf, aquatic something. Potentially in Mythic Legions.
Yeah, and she's got, let me, you know, go to the side view. She's got the ears. You know, that was one of the things that I was really excited about. And to me, it's also genius because you sculpt her like that and you can paint this head totally different. I think I agree with you. It looks like some kind of aquatic elf type character, some kind of, you know, aquatic fae. But you paint that without this very distinctive blue in that pattern, and that totally becomes an elf.
Oh, yeah. Yep.
I wish I actually had a painted version because I know a lot of people are suggesting putting her head on as a spirit bender's body. And I think that the skin tones are close, but those subtle blue differences, like what we saw with Lord Dragul and Zazar and, you know, all the different blue bodies that don't match perfectly. So I'm not sure how perfect this is going to be.
Yeah. This has got a little greenish to it. Almost.
Yeah.
I love the fact that they're continuing to bring in the cloth goods. Her poncho is phenomenal. And it's got a little, to me, this, of all the figures, this one I feel like has a very Star Wars-y vibe to it, especially with that Mortal Thorn emblem, and the poncho itself just feeling very, I guess, sort of Endor-like. Yeah, it's a very cool piece. And like, you know, I'm starting to shift ever since Alithia. I'm starting to shift a little bit in my mindset and thinking, okay, so now this grouping of parts, the parts library, so to speak, now this is going to have these cloth pieces in there. And when I buy extra figures, it's not necessarily just for the body. It's also for the clothes.
So you like soft goods because that's an ongoing debate across figures,
Yeah.
is whether you prefer the soft goods or you prefer the sculpted plastic pieces.
Yeah, I mean, when it makes sense, I definitely prefer the soft goods, like it's sometimes you can go either way. Like I have I have a Max Bird set for, what is the character's name? Is it Faustia? The like red and black knight,
Yep.
female knight.
Yep.
And it has a swap out skirt piece or tabard that is cloth, and it's kind of interesting because like you can go either way with the tabard. So at some places it's almost like I can go either way. But I do like cloth in terms of its posability, and especially when we have like Jessom stuff here that has wires and of course just like the incredible tailoring and detail.
Yeah, and I like Curtis is saying here. He says, I love Zeri's look with the cloak flipped over one shoulder like she's a gunslinger from the Old West. I was very clear last week that whole cyber gunslinger, I love that style anyway. So I agree with Curtis. I really like that look as well. I've said this before, Bill, I'm not a huge soft goods fan. I'm coming around. When Mythic Legions first got introduced with the soft goods cape, I was kind of like, I'm an old Spawn collector. So those ridiculous McFarlane capes that you could only have one pose with them, but they look awesome in that pose. Like that's kind of where I came from. So that still influences what I like. But I've come around, obviously, with what Mezco's done with soft goods, and then seeing what Jessom can do with these. The soft goods from when I was collecting Spawn figures, because back then, any character that had soft goods, it looked comical. It looked like jackets that were too big, zippers that were too big. We're not dealing with that anymore. Right. So I've come around as well. It's funny you mentioned Endor for this. I agree that this has a very Star Wars feel, but again, I really saw it as Tatooine. That kind of Luke, because there's a Luke figure that has a poncho that kind of sits like this. So immediately I went to that like desert planet type.
Right. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense too. Yeah. I can go either way.
I was gonna ignore that one. It's out of context, people. Out of context. But yeah, she's one that I really like. I also think that her lower arms, and we don't have a good photo with her cloak off, unfortunately, but her lower arms, that kind of leathery type look, that's something that I think is going to work with Mythic Legions as well. I can see people bringing that onto some figures.
It'll be interesting to see, even the poncho itself on Legions. Yeah. I mean, of course, it's got a very cosmic specific logo on it, which actually also reminds me of Star Wars. It kind of reminds me a little bit of like the bounty hunter logo there, the mythosaur.
Yep.
Thing. So that kind of like gives me Star Wars vibes as well. Or even, I mean, it even also kind of has a shape that looks like the Spartan, like the Mandalorian sort of shape. But yeah, I mean, it'll be interesting to see what some of these spacier looking parts end up doing. Like people will start mixing them in, and it's going to be some interesting things, because there's like the obvious parts, like taking heads and swapping them on, or like taking the scaled lizardy bodies, and those make a lot of sense. But then it'll be interesting to see what parts are unexpected that people try out, things that are not easy to really think about up front. Like once it's in hand, there's going to be some creative stuff going on.
I completely agree, because Olek using those reptile parts, you're right. That's going to be amazing. Seeing people do stuff similar to what like Nikki and even Joe did, where they combine those pieces, gladiators and, techno mage, whatever, that's going to be awesome. But I agree with you. I'm excited to see what people are going to do with just random parts. I wonder, for instance, this one here, the Tusk Engineer being all in black like that. I can imagine putting the unhelmeted head from like Delphina on this, and that just making a really cool. But then I can imagine stripping off some of these parts and getting rid of some of the more science fiction pieces, and just those black leggings, those black, that starts to have a very thief-like look. So I can see people mixing and matching those parts, even though we have them in Legions, having that pure black like that, I can see people doing that as well.
Yeah, the solid black parts is a good addition to that like collection of parts for kit bashing.
And we have, the Ravenna figures got those black parts, but she's not easy to find anymore.
Right.
So
yeah,
grab something like this. There are going to be pieces that I think people have had access to in the past that these are going to even replace some of those.
Right. And I think this is going to be a little shinier too. Hers was a matte.
Yeah.
This is a little shinier.
Yeah.
I wanted to mention a comment that came up a couple times now, and it's a really great idea, prediction, whatever. It's that like a potential future wave could be like a starship crew like Farscape or Firefly or something like that. And I do get a little bit of those types of vibes. Like this wave almost gives me like Guardians of the Galaxy vibes a little bit in some ways. But yeah, I love that idea of a ship crew as a potential future wave.
Yeah, the Grave Ring crew, and I've seen a picture of the Grave Ring crew all together that we haven't released yet. But when you see that crew together, it's a mic drop moment. They look so cool. You can just take the picture of the four characters and put them next to each other. But yes, very much has that Guardians of the Galaxy kind of ragtag band
misfits.
I love that. I did see a number of comments that I wanted to address as well. People just saying they hope that it's not a whole year or more before more story comes out. I can tell you that nothing has been finalized yet, but the idea is that, this isn't going to be in people's hands for quite some time. The idea is that you're not going to have to wait until these things arrive to hear any more about Cosmic Legions. The studio is very much committed to Cosmic Legions alongside Mythic Legions. So we are going to see more from Cosmarium before these are actually in hand for sure.
Very cool.
So looking at these, was there anything, as you were looking at these figures, I've mentioned a few kind of pop and swaps and customs that I'm thinking of. Was there anything that jumped out at you that immediately you were like, you already said about the bare arms on the Tusk. Any figures you want me to bring up that you want to talk a little bit about some of your ideas with?
So one of the ones that I think is going to work well for taking apart from Mythic Legions and bringing it to Cosmic will be the tabard style torso with the tabard, loincloth. So like imagine taking Faunus and taking his torso and loincloth and then swapping that onto Thygar. The either one probably would work, I think. But in my mind, I'm kind of thinking of like spacesuit arms with the cloth torso type thing. You could almost have like mystical characters in space,
Yes. Yeah, so we're looking at these pieces here, which ironically are some of my favorite. The 1.0 torso pieces, those I find to be the most versatile. So that kind of like tabard type piece, but bringing those onto Cosmic, that's awesome.
Yeah.
So using those, the more cybernetic type arms and everything, but with that
With
cloth type torso.
Yeah, that's one that I'm hoping will work out, and I think it's going to look really cool. Take spacesuit Thygar and just swap the torso with this and put the loincloth on there, and I think it's going to look fantastic.
Yeah, and Joe says, I did that at first. Joe obviously joined us last week as part of our Cosmic Custom show.
Oh,
Joe,
yeah, okay.
I did that at first, and it looks great.
Sweet.
So
Nice.
And it's funny you picked Faunus too, because Faunus already has that orange. So this
Right.
is proof of what I was saying earlier, Bill. You've got an eye for color where you were like Faunus with Thygar, and you've already got that orange there. That's gonna just mix so well. And I'm sitting here in my head going, do I have an extra Faunus in back? Because I want to try that. That's gonna look great.
Yeah. I'm trying to think if there's any other ones. Oh, you know what? I had another idea. This opens up a new tribute figure, a new Masters of the Universe tribute figure, by the way.
Okay.
Buzz Off.
Oh, yes. As soon as those wings were shown, lots of people were like, Buzz Off, Buzz Off.
Yeah, I feel like that's got to happen now at some point with those wings.
You know, one of the comments that a lot of people made during the show that I got to tell you, I didn't understand. A lot of people were asking if now that they're doing Cosmic Legions, we're going to get other tribute figures to like properties like Ben 10.
Oh.
And I didn't really understand that. First off, obviously, I'm far too old to really have watched Ben 10 or any of that stuff. But I don't think people understand the Masters tribute figures are a very unique thing because of the studio's long-running involvement in Masters of the Universe, coupled with, Eric loves Masters of the Universe. That helps.
Yeah.
So I don't think they ever really wanted to just make tribute figures for the sake of making tribute figures. It was really that one thing. So I agree with you, though, that if the PowerCon tribute or PowerCon debut figures continue, Cosmic Legions opens up a whole new realm, because Masters is obviously a line that has always combined fantasy and science fiction. So absolutely, those wings, those claws, Buzz Off pots all the way.
Yeah. Another not a tribute, but a connection that just seems like there was some visual cues, maybe connecting the Sphexians, particularly the sort of orangey one. I forget which is which, but that to me is very much like Poggle the Lesser, like a Geonosian in Star Wars. To me that looks exactly like one of those types of characters. So I we mentioned they're getting a Star Wars vibe off of Ziri. Like, I totally get a Star Wars vibe off of these guys too. Not saying it's a tribute, but I'm just saying it feels like it.
Yep, my son said the same thing when he saw that. It said it reminded him of those characters that are in the arena in Star Wars.
Exactly.
Yeah, I totally can see that. This is actually, of the two Sphexians, this is the one I prefer, the Block Commander. I dig the other one too, but that look without the mask, I really do like this one. The profile that this character makes, that back with that extra little piece, that tail piece and those wings, so cool.
I gotta say, like, the Sphexians are so complete with their style and their shape and everything that I'm not yet getting too much of a vibe of how I would do part swaps with them, aside from maybe within Cosmic to Cosmic, like maybe taking some of these parts from arms and legs from one character and like swapping them onto another. But like, this is the hardest one for me to wrap my head around, especially because the shape of some of these add-on parts, like the tail and the arched backpack thing. And I do think taking those wings and putting those on some figures, you can make like they'll obviously be like oversized for this type of a character, but you could totally make like fairies or something with them.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, so knowing how many hands these characters come with, it's funny. I when I actually saw the photo, this one, because when I was getting all these photos, they had also told me, oh, there's going to be a hands pack. There's going to be a couple hands packs, they said.
Yeah.
So when I first saw the Sphexian accessory photo, I messaged them and I said, guys, did you guys accidentally put all the hands from the hands pack inside of the accessory shot? Because I'm not used to figures coming with literally this many hands, And they said, nope, those actually come with the Sphexians. They're deluxe figures. And so immediately, it's funny that just the way things work, while I was doing this, I'm always working on other custom parts for Legion Shop and for Wolf King Customs. And one of the ones I've been working on with my buddy Walter at Mass Customs is a rhino beetle. Rhino beetles are just weird looking things. So I just wanted to do something unusual. And I thought that a rhino beetle head on a bronze dwarf Legion builder, because the bronze dwarf Legion builder's already got that like dark color. So that, that head for the rhino beetle with the big horn and stuff, I was excited about. And then when I saw these hands that will just plug in and they're bug hands, I was like, okay, awesome. Those are immediately going to go on a custom. I already knew how I was going to use those.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
Yeah, so I can see using the hands for sure. I think your point is well taken, though. The rest of these figures, they're so well realized that we may need to see them in hand to see how, other than the obvious things of, we can take the bug hands and the bug head, put that on a mythic body and make instead of a more cybernetic bug like this, more of a Mythic Legion style bug. I've done kind of bug customs in Mythic before, so it has that same feel for me.
Trevor was on the podcast, the Dorklair podcast last week, and we were talking about these and the paint jobs on these with the iridescent sort of, I don't know if it's like a color shift or like whatever that kind of paint job is. To me, when I was looking at it, I was like, oh, it looks like speckles, like maybe it's pollen or something, But no, he said it was like an iridescent, like as you turn the figure, the light shines and illuminates it in different ways. So I'm really like eager to see how that looks in hand. I have a feeling this just is not translating quite right for me in my mind of what it's going to be in hand. Sure. I think it's going to surprise a lot of people too.
It's going to probably be like, remember what happened? Well, actually, this is wave one, so this is a little bit before you were in. But Sergnatius and Orange Steelhide are two figures that were quite honestly really ordered in low numbers. Mm-hmm. That pearl kind of armor that Sergnatius had, it just didn't pick up in photos to be as attractive as it was. And then when people got it in hand and they started showing it off, everyone was like, wow, that's a gorgeous color. Mm-hmm. They wanted to get it, and there wasn't a lot to go around because it had been ordered in such small numbers. That's why he became one of the first All-Stars. I can imagine these being the same way, that when you get it in and you actually are able to hold that iridescent aspect to the paint job is really going to blow people away.
I'm just staring at the head sculpt right now.
It's so good, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's so neat. And that's cool. The way that this figure hunches over, I think Eric said on the show that, it's got a really interesting silhouette, and it's absolutely true. Yeah, this is the one. This is one I'm very, very excited for.
Yeah, like I said earlier, the 3 deluxe figures are my favorites. The 2 bug guys and then Thygar with the spacesuit. Like they just seem so elaborate, and I can't wait to get those 3 in hand in particular. But I will say this: I I'm usually expecting to sort of be like, oh, I don't know, okay, like there's one or two that are just okay. There's nothing in here that I'm just like that. There's everything could be the best figure in a wave if
Mhm.
the cards came down a little bit differently. You know what I mean? Like I feel like every single figure in this, I'm super excited about.
Yep. Yep. I'm pretty excited for everyone. Are you one of the people when you get a new wave? Are you one of those crazy people that take your time opening them and like say, I'm only going to open one a day and I'm going to stretch this out?
I don't do it purposefully, but sometimes like when you get 10 figures in hand, it's I don't have the time to open 10 figures all at once sometimes, and like um other times when I am doing reviews, I've been very 2021 has not been a consistent year for me doing the videos. But when I am doing them, sometimes it's a little bit easier to if I'm gonna like get a wave in hand and then systematically review each one. Sometimes
Mhm.
it's a little bit easier for me to only open one or two at a time, um, just because it keeps everything together. And
Sure.
yeah, it's sometimes it's more about like logistics for doing a review. But yeah, like I don't purposely say I'm gonna like slow play that and open one a week or something. No.
I, I, I take my time in terms of enjoying them,
Yeah.
but I clear my calendar and literally sit on the floor of this room that I'm filming in,
Mm-hmm.
and I just put everything out and just open them all up. I absolutely have to open them all up.
Mm-hmm.
I also pre-plan some simple swaps that I want to do. So as part of opening them, I'll do some of that stuff as well.
Yeah.
So my question is, you get this wave in, you get these 11 figures, you've got some time on your hand. You're gonna open your, which is the first one that you open?
It's weird because there was a figure. I'm trying to remember which one it was. There was a wave I remember at one point. I got it in hand, and one of the figures that was an afterthought to me. Like it drew me in, and I you could have asked me this question, and I would have said this other figure, right? And this one just drew me, and I had to open that one first, right? So sometimes it's just about like in hand, like which one just kind of pulls
Yeah.
me in. I do think I'd probably just out of curiosity alone, I would probably open a Sphexian first,
Okay.
just because there's so much like wild, interesting. Like I love that stuff. Like for Black Series for Star Wars, my main collection is I collect the creatures and the aliens. Like
Okay.
that is how I keep my Star Wars Black Series like manageable. Is like that's my focus, and so like I love the creatures. I love the weirdos, and so that's probably gonna be what I open first.
I think for me, it's either going to be the Sphexian Block Commander or the Deluxe Thigh Guard. I think starting with that Thigh Guard character, that's what I'm leaning towards. Um, I could make an argument for Slog just because he's the most unique because he's a
Yeah,
new category. But I think I'm probably going to save him for. I might even save him for last, to be honest with you.
yeah, yeah. He'll be a draw. He'll be like pulling my eye because it's so new, so different.
Yeah, and it's going to be big and just weird.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. One thing that I think is cool that I'm not hearing a lot of people talk about is, and I'm going to actually go back to the page, is this character Vorga,
Oh
who
yeah,
gorgeous, gorgeous paint job on this figure. Looked at that on the show. Shows with the two heads, the masked and the unmasked. But one of the things that I think is really interesting with Vorga is this is a 1.0 figure.
yeah,
If you look at the body parts here, if you look at the legs and everything, this is a 1.0. And for all of my viewers that are obsessed with dwarves, that's one of the first things that I thought about was, female dwarves, because we've gotten a female dwarf in Mythic Legions and Ragnar Stormforger, but I know for me, that's not what I picture a female dwarf looking like.
Yeah, same
Um,
here.
yeah, I felt like the body parts we had weren't ready to give us a female dwarf.
Right.
Larger, thicker body parts, like what we see on Vorga, those I feel are more in line with what I imagine we would get with a dwarf. Now, obviously, this looks very technical with the way that chest armor is and stuff. But I never put it past the way that they can paint that to look like it can fit in Mythic.
Yeah. I think a lot of the technical stuff too is the gauntlets, the shoulder pads. Strip that down, and it probably would work as a Mythic torso.
Yeah, because I'm looking at specifically the torso part there.
Yeah,
and it's got this belt like piece, but I mean, I don't know. I really do feel like you paint that a certain way, and that will transform from looking like more high-tech armor into just looking like something that does fit in the realm of mythos.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Give it a more beat up. Give the metal part a more beat up steel, sort of iron type look to it. Make that black strap maybe a leathery color.
Yep.
And I think that'll work. I'm just generally excited about the concept of a 1.0 female, 1.0 style female in general, like, and potentially the arms and stuff might foretell other torsos for 1.0 female style bodies down the road, whether mythic or cosmic. So to me, that's one of those like kind of like game changers, the way doing like hands and swap out hands were come for the Aether wave, so yeah.
It's funny you mentioned that, because something like, we're going to start doing bare hands or expression hands, that's not a groundbreaking decision. Lots of figures come with expression kind of hands, but as a Mythic Legions collector, you get those hand packs in, and it is you said game changer. It's a game changer.
Yeah, it changes things.
So it's amazing how those little additions can absolutely add so much. Yeah. I agree with you. I'm really excited for the idea of a 1.0 style female character, just because we don't have it. And anytime they expand, the universe in any way, I'm all for that.
Yeah, it's like a new archetype that's coming in, right? It's kind of like when they introduced 2.0, they introduced a new body type. This is essentially a similar kind of thing to me.
Anthony asked, and he asked if the neck piece is separate. I actually don't know if the neck piece is separate. I'm assuming it is, just because neck pieces in the past have been separate, and they've kind of been very clear about separating what pieces they can to get more usage out of it. So I assume so, but I don't actually know. Those are parts that I don't have in hand.
The paint job, the fading or the shading, I guess, on the arm, the blue parts with the yellow shading and stuff.
Yeah,
is really nice.
Yeah, it is a absolutely gorgeous figure, and not something I expected either. No. I've seen some people refer to this as like the alien version of Cara Dune. And I can see that, burly kind of character, strong female, heavy weapon type character. I totally can see that comparison. McFly saying she has the H.R. Geiger head. Yeah, that's the head that Dennis Derby had painted up. And like I said, when I sent it to Dennis, I didn't know what the final version was going to actually look like, but gorgeous paint job all around on that. Anthony saying that a machine gun toting space dwarf is on the way. I wouldn't doubt it. Awesome. All right, what else do we want to look at? Direct me, Bill.
Bring up the full checklist.
The full checklist?
Yeah, okay. The full wave, the full cosmic wave.
Okay, so Here it is, but let's see if I can make it a little bit smaller so we can
Yeah, there we go.
see everybody.
Let's take a look at the Tusk officer. We haven't really, I mean, I mentioned it earlier, but we haven't really like pulled it up.
Yep. So Tusk Science Officer, similar body, but we've obviously got the 2-fingered hands. I did see some people lament the fact that he doesn't come with the 2-toed feet.
Right.
I like the 2-toed feet, so I kind of, when I heard that comment, I was like, oh yeah, that's kind of cool.
That would make sense, yeah.
That would be kind of neat.
Yeah, I mean, again, I think any sort of like Mythic Legions blue arms and stuff are going to be awesome on this. I love the legs. It's a little more white than the Sentry, right? The Sentry's a little beige, and this is sort of a little more on the white side.
The Sentry's more grayish beige, I guess. I look at it as gray, and this is definitely white.
Yeah.
I can tell you that when Trevor's had these in hands. When he sent over the photos before we actually knew that it was Science Officer, Engineer, and Sentry, he called it Tusk White, Tusk Black, Tusk Gray.
Okay.
So he's held them in hands, and he called them black and gray.
Right.
Just real quick, a good question here, and we'll get back to the Tusk. Says that I can see how many of these could be ordered extra and used for customs. What way do I think Slog will be used? Slog is the outlier right now because he's a brand new figure size, a brand new category. So like when the Trolls came out, and look, the Trolls are a figure that people haven't done a lot of customs with, right? We're just starting to see troll heads come on for those, but we haven't seen the they're not made to pop and swap the way everything is. But ogres, we've seen a lot of people messing around with ogres and stuff. I think that as ogres over time, we get more pieces for ogres. We're going to see more swapping. I think Slog's going to be in that category. I think right now, we're not going to be doing a lot of swapping with Slog, but if we judge Four Horsemen Studios on their history, they don't release anything that they're like, we're going to use this one time. We're never going to use this again. Realistically, I don't know if people have ever caught on to this. The only thing they tend not to reuse frequently are major character heads.
Right.
Those are the only things. Body parts, they get reused all the time. So investing in all that tooling to make Slog, it's unlikely that we're never going to see other figures in that size category. So down the road, we may be able to do it. But back to this guy. I love those lower legs that Eric called them, that kind of like dog-like, layout.
Right. They kick back.
Yeah.
Yeah. Another good base color, base body that's going to be very versatile in terms of kit bashing. And of course, this one's got a very specific blue color going on, but yeah, it's going to be interesting to see the kinds of things people do with this.
I don't dye figures, but for those people that want to get into dyeing, this will probably be a great figure to do that with because of its white color base.
Yeah.
It'll probably take dye really, really well.
Mm-hmm. And just a great base figure for people to paint up, being a Legion builder. If people who like to do detail painting, which I don't do a lot of personally, because I tend to like mess up a lot. I think this is going to be a lot of fun for people who really enjoy that kind of thing.
Yes, I agree completely. Yeah, I think this is going to be really similar to a lot of the stuff I think we talked about with Tusk Sentry. Really simple, people popping the head off, putting other heads on there. I think that, from the third-party companies, we're going to see a lot of crazy-looking alien heads that are going to be just well-suited to going on these more generic bodies. I think the Sentry, because of the way the legs are shaped, is going to look more like a that Space Marine I mentioned, where this particular character will lend itself to just being a little stranger.
Yeah, I mean, maybe this is the one to put Kratos' head on because it's just got just a little bit of that weirdness, that
Yep.
little weird shape. Speaking of slog, I was looking at the slog page, and where it says additional heads, it says no data available yet.
Yes.
As it does with the Tusk Sentry.
Yes.
So so I wonder if the future, and of course you can't say anything, but I wonder if the future will hold additional heads for these. And I was, what was making me think of slog and checking for that was the fact that that's probably the place where those sculptors are going to go with slog.
Yeah.
But yeah, it'll be interesting to see if indeed those are the tier goals for the next two levels.
So I will say this. I have seen all the people speculating that I left two figures that still say data not yet available, and there happen to be two more stretch goals left, and they're assuming, oh, that's clearly what the two stretch goals are.
Right.
And I would refer to the fact that that's an easy thing for me to catch, that we're not going to make it that easy on you.
It's a misdirection, so to speak.
We're not going to make it that easy.
I love it.
You really think I would leave just two empty if those were the two? It's super easy for me just not to fill one of those in right now. So am I saying that that's not true? No, not necessarily. It could be, but I'm saying that sometimes we provide that misdirection just to not make it so easy.
Are you saying the next level is going to be both heads?
I can say anything of the sort. I do think that, look at that outfit. It's so
insane.
detailed. It's so detailed.
It is insane.
Oh. So the reveals we've gotten so far, the unlocks, and it's interesting. I saw a comment today that someone said that they were concerned that the unlocks haven't changed since earlier in the week, which
isn't change true. Didn't it bump up a little bit today?
It's bumped up every single day. Actually, it's bumped up a little bit. The difference is the space from 0 to first unlock was not super substantial, and then the space from 1 to 2 was a little bit more. The space from 2 to 3 is even more. So how quickly we got to those first two unlocks, yes, obviously, like any wave, when you first put it live, there's that rush of sales.
Yeah.
But I don't want people to think that there's not a lot of interest in the line. The distance between some of these unlocks is getting greater. Well, it's going to take a little bit, but they have been going up. I think what happens though, and I can bring up that page. I think what happens is if you go to the Valkatar page, there's the thing there. If I light up one of these little bars, it doesn't visually look like a huge change. So if you come and you see 3 lit up, and then the next day you come and you see 4 lit up, just at a glance, you might say, oh, that's exactly where it was yesterday. Yeah. You're not realizing that, no, it is actually moving. It is actually moving.
Yeah, I noticed it today. I was like, that's moving. It passed the 2, and then I haven't been checking it every day, but I noticed it was 2 past. And then today I noticed it was 4 past, and I was like, okay, that thing's moving.
Yep. So it's getting there. And so far we've gotten, the coin, which is a fun little add-on. I love the fact that it's, designed to look like one of the key cards in the prison. But that's just a fun thing that's just going to get thrown in with every order. Yeah. Similar to what they did with the Sword Horseman, right? Yeah. Back during Advent of Decay, where they were like, hey, everyone gets a Sword Horseman. Fun little, gift. But then obviously the second unlock being the extra head and the mask for Zeri comes with the Zeri figure. So I think that's pretty cool. I think people are going to dig the other reveals that come out as well.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. I can't wait.
So someone had a question that I wanted to cover. Oh yeah, Curtis asked, he said, are the legs on Sentry and the legs on Science Officer different? And yes, they actually are. So if you look at this, this obviously stands down straight. And let's look at Science Officer from that same angle. You know what? They actually don't look different. I'm looking at them. I unfortunately can't do them side by side the way this works.
Wait, so what's the Sentry and the Science Officer?
Because
the upper legs?
There's definitely something different. It's got to be those lower legs.
The lower legs are different.
The lower legs are definitely different.
Yes.
It's weird because from the back, let me go here. From the back, that like little exhaust port looks really, really similar. But I think this is the angle where you can see the difference. The way, that's where the knee, that knee port is where it would connect. You can see that those parts really, really kick back.
Yeah. From the front, you can tell. From the back, it might look similar, but yeah.
Yeah. And
the
then
lower legs, the calf muscle, like that is totally a different piece.
Yeah. So there we go. Very different piece there. Upper legs, I think, are the same. Lower legs, the way they connect, that is really where you're going to see the difference.
Mm-hmm.
And if I'm not mistaken, Thygar has the dog style legs, I guess it would be called, right?
Yeah. So if you wanted to,
I don't know.
Does he?
I can't really tell on
him. I gotta get it bigger on my screen. Hold on, let me see. Thygar.
Man, his look like they just stand down. I think the difference with him is he's got the two-toed feet, but I think he's got the lower legs like the Tusk Sentry has, the more humanoid-looking ones, not the ones that are more animal.
Yeah, the toes are throwing it off a little bit.
It is.
But his go straight. Yeah, his don't kick back like that.
So that being said, I think that the Science Officer is the only one. Wait.
The Sphexians have
that. The Sphexians have it too. Okay, yeah. So the Sphexians, who, because they're already so hunched, so there we go. That makes sense. So the Sphexians and the Science Officer have the legs that kind of kick back, and Trevor's confirming it's the knee part. Yeah. So that's really the difference there.
Yeah. Awesome. So if you wanted to take, Thygar, and if you wanted to take him and give him feet, like booted feet, like that don't have the two-toe, mm-hmm. you might be able to take something like Vorga's feet and put them on him. That might look okay for a swap. I know they're blue, but the blue mm-hmm. does kind of mix in with him a little bit.
Yep. I don't know why you'd want to swap out those feet. Those feet are awesome.
I'm just thinking in terms of if you're trying to kit bash a second straight up Space Marine looking body like that, that's kind of the way to do it.
Yeah, and this does have such distinctive colors on it. Yeah, it's got great colors, so I could see people doing that too. I like this fun little port system too. I think that's going to provide some fun, different ways that you can display the characters with how you're going to mount the weapons to them.
Yep.
Excellent. Anything else that you want me to bring up or talk about here?
No, I mean, I think we've kind of covered everything in terms of, we haven't looked at the weapons pack really.
Yeah, I mean, obviously they're all weapons we're getting elsewhere, but some different color schemes. So that's kind of cool.
And just extras to have, it's always nice absolutely. To have. I know, but at some point with Mythic Legions, it's like piles and piles of weapons, but early on, it's going to be really nice to have a bunch of extras.
Absolutely. I mean, plus I can see lots of people, just like people fudged in all kinds of weapons from other fantasy lines.
Mm.
I think people are going to bring in all kinds of crazy weapons because there's no shortage of other science fiction lines. I actually earlier today, a lot of times on Wednesdays when I set this up is when I shoot some of my videos, my little short customizing videos that I post on the weekends. So today I shot one really just thinking about fodder pieces, like fodder lines that people can start mining for upcoming cosmic customs. And that's one of the things I talk about, that, you know, the weapons that you get with all these other lines, I'm sure people are going to start integrating those into this wave as well.
Yeah, and I think in terms of like just what other figures am I going to mix in? I know some people are purists and they just keep it straight up legions, or you know, and then another shelf might be their, you know, their storm collectibles, which tend to have a fantasy theme. But for me, I like to mix them in, and like the Krigs from Mezco
Yep.
are, to me, like they're like in that space science fiction realm that are going to be like right on the same shelves as my Cosmic Legions.
That I can see. One of the things I mentioned in my video about, and I was talking about using fodder pieces. So this is even different than that because this is the side by side. To me, using something like the Craig makes a lot of sense because they're not so well established.
Right.
It's not such a well established property that you're like, well, that's clearly Boba Fett or Darth Vader standing next to, you know, Thygor.
Right. Taking Aragorn and putting him next to Legions is like taking Boba Fett and putting him next to Cosmic. Yeah. Whereas taking a skeleton from Golden Axe,
the storm
is
stuff,
totally like mixing in pretty well. Is the same thing with like Craig mixing in with the Cosmic.
I agree completely. So, question for you: you mentioned earlier some different things that are, you can see influences in this, and you mentioned Farscape, which is something I've seen a lot of people say they get a Farscape feel for this. Are you a Farscape fan?
I've never watched Farscape. It was a comment that I saw. I'm trying to remember who said the comment. I have watched Firefly, and they were kind of like throwing that in the same sort of like spaceship crew kind of thing. But no, I haven't watched Farscape. I should someday. I've heard good things.
Well, it's funny. 2 weeks ago, when I did my pre-cosmic show, we were talking about, you know, all different science fiction, and someone mentioned that because right in those teasers, people were getting a jailbreak feel, right? People were like, "Oh, I feel like this is a prison," and they said it reminds me of Farscape, and I mentioned that I had never watched Farscape, so I told people that I would do it, and I did. I want to let you all know that I have started watching Farscape, and I am very much enjoying it. I want to say I'm like episode 7 or 8 on season 1. And I had some people say, look, it takes a little while to find its footing, like a lot of shows do. But if you can get through season 1, the end of season 1 into season 2 is excellent. I can tell you that I'm out, like I said, episode 7 or 8, and I can already see the quality of the show and of the writing and everything starting to improve. I'm definitely getting pretty hooked on it, and it's one of those things that I find myself wanting to have time in front of the TV to watch it. So that clearly shows that I'm enjoying the show. So just wanted to give everyone that update because you told me I have to watch it.
Nice. Is that on a streaming service? Or
I'm watching it on, I think, Amazon. I think it's I think on Amazon Prime.
All right, maybe I'll look into that. Maybe I'll watch it too.
Yes, and Lewis Christensen says it has Muppets, which it very much does. Jim Henson does, you know, Jim Henson Studios does a lot of the creature effects. So they're very like Dark Crystal, practical kind of creature effects, which I totally dig because it brings me back to that nostalgia of those older movies and stuff, you know, Labyrinth or whatever. So yeah, definitely enjoying that. People talking about Firefly now. I've only actually seen Serenity. That's the movie, right?
Yeah.
So I've seen Firefly Serenity. I enjoyed Firefly Serenity quite a bit, but I've never gone back and actually watched the show.
It's good. It's a good show. It's short. Like, you know, it was one of those shows that got canceled too soon.
Yes.
So there's not a lot of it. Kind of like there's a few other shows out there like Deadwood. Like that show was, or Rome. Like some of these HBO shows, they just were, I don't know if they're too expensive or what, but they just ended too early, and it's almost mind blowing how good some of these shows are that they just stop. It's like not enough.
Yeah, kills you. Yeah, McFly saying the Delphina on that black leather body, she'll look like one of the bad guys on Farscape. Yeah, that's when I was looking at them and just kind of thinking of part swaps and bashes. That was one of the ones that I immediately thought of is putting her head, because she's got the black hair, so I figured that would work really, really well. So anybody else want? We've got a few more minutes here. Any questions for Bill or myself? One thing I will mention while we wait for some more questions is if you check out legionscon.com, we did just release information on the cost for it and on, I want to say tickets, but we're actually not pre-selling tickets. So just to give this quick update here, what we're going to do is it is just going to be at the door, but the prices are listed now. So if you do want to come to both days, Saturday is more ToyCon, and there's no formal Legions Con activities going on. This is November 13th and 14th. If you want to come to both days, if you want to hang out at ToyCon on Saturday and come to Legions Con on Sunday, it's only $25. If you just want to come on Sunday and want to go to both shows, it's $20. If you just come on Sunday and just want to go to Legions Con, they're in the same building. It's only going to be $10. So all that information is available now at legionscon.com. So if you want more information, you can check that out. Certainly, I'll be talking more about Legions Con as we get closer in subsequent weeks.
Yeah, I'm going to try to make it, but I can't commit yet, but hopefully I'll make it down.
Well, we hope
I had a lot of fun at ToyCon, and yeah, I definitely want to try to get down there.
Excellent.
Somebody asked what else I collect. Where is that comment? Greg, I think. He was asking what else I'm into. So, and then also the origin of the reviews and stuff. Like, I'm a huge Star Wars fan. I'm also a big Star Trek fan and like some other things too, but like I'd say Star Wars is probably my biggest thing. And so I was collecting SH Figuarts. I still do, but like they don't really make many anymore for the Star Wars figures. And that's when I started the podcast. So I started the Dorklair Collecting podcast. I think it was 2017. And it was specifically an SH Figuarts Star Wars news and reviews. So each week, back then, it had been out for a few years, and there was like a nice back catalog, and there was always a figure every week we could review, and they were dropping one a month pretty much back then. And so we were just cranking through that, and then as I got some other hosts, as Chris and Larry came on, we started bringing in other figures. Figuarts Star Wars started kind of like dialing back, and then we eventually became just general. And it's more on the premium side, like, but I also collect I'm big into Mezco. Around that time that we started shifting, I started collecting Mezco big time, and I love Mezco. So I do have quite a few Mezco figures, a lot of Star Wars Figuarts, and in the last couple years, I've been getting more and more into Star Wars Hot Toys. So my Star Wars Hot Toys collection is slowly growing. It's still a fairly small collection, but like I'm a little more diehard with that now, and I'm dialing back a little bit on the Mezco. But yeah, so like Star Wars is huge for me, and I'm now like way into the XO6 1/6 scale Star Trek figures because I'm also a pretty big Star Trek fan. So that's like my 6 scale stuff. I am into that a bit. But yeah, that's kind of and then eventually, you know, what's funny is we talked about when I got into Legions, and really it was when Advent of Decay released that I decided to put up my first video. I think my first video was Noobnik, and as that wave hit, I had some figures in hand, and I was sort of reviewing them on the podcast, and I was like, let me make some videos and try this, and I started making videos pretty regularly. It became a grind, like doing 2 videos a week and a podcast every single
Hard.
week. Now I'm doing a podcast every other week, and I do like a slew of reviews every few months. I'll do like some in a row on videos. But yeah, so the videos have scaled way back, but that's kind of the origin of the Dorklair there.
So it's a lot of work. I don't think people fully realize how much work it goes into
Video
doing
making.
some of this stuff.
Video making is time consuming.
I mean, a 90-minute show like this, when you figure the prep work that goes into it, I mean, it's a lot of work.
Yeah.
So you mentioned Mezco. That's actually how we kind of started talking, because when I got into Mezco, I knew nothing about it, and I needed, friendly faces that I recognized that could answer questions for me and help me out. And you very early on would direct me when I was trying to figure out, how do these drops work and how do I get in on this Rumble Society stuff. You set me straight. So you were my early Mezco source in a big way. So I thank you for that.
You're welcome.
You mentioned Star Wars hot toys. I will tell you that I am not a 1/6 scale collector. I got rid of any 1/6 I had, but there is one figure for that line that I've had my eye on that I feel like I could buy just that one. And I believe it's one that you acquired somewhat recently. It is the Boba Fett in the vintage Kenner toy colors.
Yeah. I have that one. I have the 3 Empire Boba Fett. So that one, and then there's the. Actually, I wonder if you can probably see my Boba Fett's right over there. And I have the animated one, and then I have the regular Empire one, which doubles. The regular Empire one is a deluxe figure that you can swap it out to be the pre-production version of Boba Fett before they started filming. There's like 2 versions that you can make of it. It's awesome. Their Boba Fett's are like that's. I'm not even like a massive Boba Fett fan. Like I like the character, but like the Hot Toys Boba Fett's are just so nice.
So what you're telling me is that I should buy this. I should take this plunge and buy this figure.
Yeah, I mean, if you can still find it, like if it's aftermarket prices, it might be kind of like too expensive. But yeah, I mean, if you can find it for a reasonable price, yeah, grab it. It's an awesome figure. It's super striking. Like it's so sharp. It kind of makes me hope they go that route with the repaint armor Mandalorian Boba Fett, because the promo images of that figure make it look like they painted over the rusty, messed up like metal, and in the show it's super sharp and crisp and flat.
Yeah.
And this figure reminds me of that almost more so than the actual figure they're putting out. So that's one I haven't ordered yet because I hope they update us with pics. But that vintage Boba is awesome.
Okay, well, if I get it and I get into Hot Toys, I'm going to blame you. I blame you for Mezco in a big way, like I just said, so why not, right?
My favorite answer to that is, I'm sorry and you're welcome.
Okay, I'm trying to see if there's any other questions in here. So Curtis saying, I've seen some people talk about backer kits for War of the Eighth of Blade. I haven't seen one yet. Are they out? Do you need to fill one out if you aren't making changes to your order? I just asked this question of the game team because I haven't seen it either. I know they've submitted the backer kit. They're just waiting for approval. Okay. But I will tell you, the store is open. So apparently if you want to add, because it's weird. They're saying that you have to have any changes to figures, any additional figures you want in by the end of September, because they have to place the order with the factory. So I was kind of waiting for the backer kit email to come for me to add some more figures. So I don't know. Curtis, you haven't missed the email yet. I can tell you that for sure.
And they had a date on that, and it's passed. Like that's delayed, definitely.
Yeah.
So
it is absolutely delayed. And again, I just reached out to the Great Hall team and asked them, hey, did I miss this? And they were like, no, we're actually still waiting on approval for that. So hopefully it'll be coming any day now.
Yeah.
Just kind of trying to go quickly through some of these. I'd love a graphic novel for Cosmic Legions. Any chance of seeing Cosmic Legions narrative in a book or printed form as a full story? I mean, as more unfolds, who knows? Who knows what projects could happen in the future? All those things are definitely possibilities. Do tickets sell out for Legions Con? Well, there aren't tickets in advance. So, I mean, presumably, we can only get so many people in the door. So, we're anticipating a good crowd, and we've got space for a good crowd. But yes, if we wildly underestimate how many people come there, if we're just totally blows us away, we're going to have a problem.
Just get there early. Get there really early.
That's the reality. Like I said, we looked into doing pre-doing tickets, and there's problems with it. ToyCon has done pre-sell on tickets before, and the report was they were just absolutely a headache to deal with. The people trying to bring them up on their phone, it just slowed the line up. So at this point, we're just going to have them at the door. I do think that we'll have enough room to get everybody in a reasonable amount of time.
Yeah, and so when I was at ToyCon, what was going on was there was a line, and actually Hedgehog is in here. He was out in that line. That's where I met him. And it moves, like people are always coming and going. So the line, the capacity is reached, and the line moves as people leave. So, it's not that crazy even if it is full. But yeah, I mean, just get there early. You're not going to be standing out there alone. There's going to be other people there early. Probably Mythic Legions collectors to hang out with in line and make a new friend,
I will say this. I think one of the things that's going to happen at Legions Con, because you were at the Toy Con in May, that was insanity. And they've never had a Toy Con like that with the line of that length.
Okay.
But that line was predominantly just for the Horseman's table.
Okay.
ToyCon Saturday is going to have a Horseman table. So I think a lot of people are going to come on Saturday. They're going to, casually mingle at ToyCon. They're going to hit the Horseman table. We have plans to move that table from where it was in May to a new location where we can manage the line a little bit better. So the goal is to get people in that building as quickly as possible. And if they want to get in line for the Horseman, to have that go a certain way that it doesn't affect everything else.
Right.
My anticipation is that a lot of people are going to hit up the Horseman table on Saturday. And if they're coming back on Sunday for Legions Con, that won't be a table they have to hit right away because they're going to have done that on Saturday. On Sunday, they're going to be able to come in and see some of the other artists and vendors that are going to be there. So we're trying to break it up like that so we can get people in. They can get through the show. They can see who they want to see, get the things they want to get. You can do as much planning as possible, but you won't know until it happens.
Yeah, I might need to find a way to come both days.
So Abnormally was asking, was the Goblin Scale custom I showed last week a Tusk Sentry head with the green plate removed? And it absolutely was. So that, if you look at the Tusk Sentry, it's got kind of that shiny plate piece. That piece does come off. And what I showed last week for that Goblin is just that head minus that piece. Actually, the head on the Science Officer with that clear blue piece, that's a separate piece as well. So you can technically pull that off, and there is electronics and stuff underneath it in that little single eye.
And did they like say that's what they're shooting for with the production piece too, as those removable pieces?
I think it's going to have to come off because they're going to use different materials on that. So some of them are going to be, transparent, like we see on the Science Officer. They want to be able to do back metal and different things like that. So if it's not removable, and it might be one of those pieces that you can take it off, but it's not meant to be popped on and off. Like you can pull the heads out of the hoods with a little bit of effort.
Yeah.
It might be something like that. I think that's still
loosen
up.
A little glue and it'll come out.
Yes. a little glue and it'll pop out. And there's lots of parts that fall under that.
Mm-hmm.
Awesome. So, and Christo was asking on the science officer, is there a blue sculpt on the helmet that looks like a light, or is that flash on the promo pics? And Trevor answered, it's just a blue window. It's smooth, no light. Yeah, Trevor's photos are so good that sometimes you're like, ooh, it might just be the way he staged it sometimes. Good to know that. Nice to have him actually part of the community to answer some of those questions. So with that, Bill, do you have anything else that you want to leave the audience with? It's already 9 o'clock. We got through 90 minutes.
No, I had a great time. This was a lot of fun, and man, I'm so pumped up, and thank God for these, these features that are going to like tide us over until later, because it's going to be a long wait, but these features I think are going to really make it worthwhile to wait. So
yeah, like I said, there's a lot coming, both for Cosmic, both for Mythic Legions. There's going to be so much between now and the time that we get these in hand. There's going to be so much to get excited for. And then, we're going to get to a point, Bill, and I've been telling people this for years. I've heard people say, oh, I wish Mythic Legions were available more regularly. I wish they were easier to come by. And I feel like we're in this phase right now where we've seen a lot of pre-orders in a row. If you want regular product arriving in hands, we've got to go through this part first. We've got to do all these pre-orders. And now in short order, we're going to start seeing All-Stars 4, Alithia, reinforcements, Deluxe Legion builders. All these things are going to start hitting. And I think that in short order, as we get, certainly the end of this year into next year, we're going to start seeing a pretty consistent flow of product arriving in hands. And before you know it, Cosmic Legion's time will be here.
Mm-hmm. Good point. Yep.
Awesome. Bill, give us a plug. How can they learn more about, how can they listen to you on Dorklair and your other endeavors?
So Dorklair is like a regular podcast. It's on Apple Podcasts, it's on Spotify, Amazon Music. I just saw there's going to be a way to get it on Facebook now. I don't know exactly how that's going to work, so be on the lookout for that. But any like podcast app, just search Dorklair. Of course, there's the Dorklair YouTube channel, and then follow me on Instagram at the Dorklair, and I'm on Twitter. I don't use Twitter quite as much. Our home base really is retrozap.com, and you can get there by just typing in dorklair.com. I have the Mezco checklist there, which I actually have to update with Spider-Man 2099. But I keep a checklist up to date with lots of different information like price history and not just like the prices and like the release dates and then the pre-order dates and all that stuff. So a lot of people are kind of familiar with dorklair.com because of that checklist. So check that one out too.
Absolutely. Yeah. There you go. If you want more from Bill, that's where you can find him. Of course, you can find me back here next week. Saw some people asking what the topic for next week is. I have no idea. I haven't thought that far yet. There are times that I do plan well in advance. Now is not one of those times. So we'll figure it out. I saw a bunch of people asking for a show about some lore. So maybe we'll do that. We'll see. Bill, hang out for a few minutes. I'm going to do the outro. I'm going to get everyone out of here, and then you and I can wrap up. Cool?
Awesome.
Thank you all very much for joining. I'll see you next week. Same Mythic time, same Mythic channel.